We have a great lineup today, so I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of our state Senate candidates or some of their representatives. We also have our executive director from the South Carolina Democratic Party, Jay Parmlee, who's going to be speaking and addressing us as well. I want to start by taking a moment to say her name and talk about the justice denied for Breonna Taylor. I personally hate how I've become numb to this in our society. It took me a good 12 hours to even react to whatever we want to call what Daniel Cameron did at that press conference. And that shouldn't be our existence. That can't be our reality. And we have to work even harder to make sure we're honoring Breonna Taylor, living up to the legacy that she deserved and the life that she could have led. And it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure we are doing our part to step up, to show out, and to make sure that we're carrying on the flame for all of those who unfortunately are not able to see the future that we are here to create. As usual, I want to start by thank yous, always thank yous to our team. But this weekend, I want to shout out a special person. Many of you know him as a judge or a former judge, but we have a man named Kynard Johnson who is a amazing human being who helps all of our office volunteers get settled and scheduled and steps up and is showing up at the office at all hours of the night and making sure we have signs. So if you see Kynard or you interact with Kynard, please make sure you say a thank you to him. He is a wonderful Democrat, but more importantly, a wonderful spirit. And we're lucky to have Kynard and all of our office volunteers in this party. They make it work. I want to share a piece that I found by Joyce Vance, who's someone that I've really enjoyed listening to. She is a former district judge in Northern Alabama. I watch her on MSNBC often, and she is excellent. She really captures the legal system and the way that jurists and the DOJ kind of act or interact on a daily basis. And she had this great piece that I want to share with you. And it's titled, Ruth Bader Ginsburg Lost Her Battle to Save Voting Rights. Here's how we can take up that fight and honor her legacy. And again, this is a piece by Joyce Vance. Justice Ginsburg's dissents were often even more powerful than her voice when she was in the majority. She described them as appealing to the intelligence of a future day. She never stopped believing in that better future, or that law provided a vehicle for moving the country forward. This was never truer than when she found herself in the minority in the voting rights case, Shelby County versus Holder. Joined by Justices Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, the majority opinion rolled back the 1965 Voting Rights Act protections and permitted states, including those with histories of racially motivated voter suppression, to change their voting procedures without any outside oversight. Justice Ginsburg knew what that meant and refused to pretend it wouldn't erode the advancements made under that act. The case's legal underpinnings are somewhat complicated, but worth tracing. Shelby County, Alabama, just south of Birmingham, sued then Attorney General Eric Holder in federal court in the District of Columbia in April 2010, arguing parts of the Voting Rights Act were unconstitutional. The district judge disagreed, ruling that the act would stay in force. The Court of Appeals affirmed. The Voting Rights Act was enacted to ensure no citizen would be denied the right to vote because of race or color. It created a coverage formula that applied to states and political subdivisions with a history of significant discrimination against Black voters in the 1960s and 1970s. This discrimination included impossible literacy tests, administered only to Black people and poor white people, and devices like Mississippi's notorious soap bubble test, which required Black voters to correctly guess the number of bubbles in a bar of soap in order to vote. The act prohibited the old discriminatory test and devices and required those jurisdictions to submit any new changes in their voting procedures, closing or moving polling places, requirements for more and more limited forms of identification, reduction in early voting days, purges to voter rolls to either the Justice Department or the District Court in the District of Columbia for approval before they enacted them, a process which we all know as pre-clearance. When the act was passed in 1965, the covered jurisdictions included the states of Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Virginia, and of course our state of South Carolina. 39 counties in North Carolina and one in Arizona fell within it. Additional jurisdictions were added to the act in subsequent years. For instance, in 1975, when Congress added coverage in some jurisdictions that only offered ballots in English. In finding the act unconstitutional and ending the pre-clearance requirement for the covered states and counties, Chief Justice Roberts held that the, quote, blight of racial discrimination in voting, unquote, that had, quote, infected the electoral process in parts of our country for nearly a century, end quote, and which the act was designed to address voter discrimination had been ameliorated in 2013. Let's just put a pin in that because we're hoping Justice Roberts is going to be on our side going forward in the court. So let's put aside that crazy decision and keep on going with the story that Justice Vance is telling us. On the same day in February 2013 that lawyers for Shelby County appeared before the Supreme Court and argued that discrimination in voting was a thing of the past and that intentional discrimination had disappeared, a friend of mine had business in the Shelby County Courthouse. He had forgotten he had an old coin in his pocket that he had shown to a friend and had to take it out as he went through security. The courthouse security guard, a white man, looked at the coin and told him, quote, that's a Dixon. That's where the name Dixie comes from. But, the guard told him dismissively, Black people will tell you it's just about cotton. Then, in a moment that surprised my friend enough that he shared the story with me the day the Shelby County case was decided, the guard told him that since it was Black History Month, if he wanted to see Black history, he'd take him over to the county jail, where he could see it, all lined up. The guard's opinion was shocking. Even worse was the fact that a county employee charged with protecting the public felt comfortable sharing it with a stranger, as though every white person in his courthouse in Shelby County would share his views. Shelby County had filed its lawsuit after one of its small cities, Calera, created a new voting plan without submitting it for pre-clearance that resulted in its only Black council member losing his seat. After the city was forced to redo its plan in compliance with the act, a new election was held and the council member regained his seat. Alabama also had a law that prohibited people who had been convicted of a felony from voting, which disparately affected Black people. But Chief Justice Roberts accepted Shelby County's characterization, writing in his opinion, there is no denying, however, that the conditions that originally justified these measures no longer characterize voting in the covered districts. Nearly 50 years later, things have changed dramatically, suggesting that the Voting Rights Act was no longer necessary because it had succeeded, didn't reflect the reality in many of these covered jurisdictions. Justice Ginsburg understood that the act was a levee keeping a whole process of problems at bay, even though she couldn't, as a justice in the minority, prevent the evisceration of the Voting Rights Act. She devised an analogy of such power that anyone who heard it understood why it was so important to keep the act in place. Throwing out pre-clearance when it has worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you're not getting wet. she wrote. There was no gainsaying her logic or prescience. Alabama implemented the Voter Identification Act it passed 2 years earlier, but declined to submit for pre-clearance as soon as the Supreme Court decided Shelby County. Texas put in place an even stricter Identification Act that same day the case was decided, one that would impact predominantly poor and minority voters. North Carolina followed suit and also cut back on early voting. Mississippi rolled out its own Identification Act, one it had submitted but not received pre-clearance to use. And in the wake of Shelby County, the court gave permission to purge voter rolls in gerrymandered districts. The future Justice Ginsburg hoped to evoke in her dissents, where protection for everyone's voting rights would be the law of the land, looked even more distant as House Republicans presented nearly unanimous opposition to H.R. 4, a new Voting Rights Act that passed the House in 2019, and the Senate refused to hold a floor vote on the bill. The Voting Rights Act was originally passed for only 5 years, but it was renewed with strong bipartisan majorities during the Republican administrations under Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Bush. On each occasion, Congress recognized that while selecting a candidate to vote for is a political choice, the act of voting itself is a fundamental American, a quintessential right that must be protected for all citizens. Justice Ginsburg took the majority to task for failing to honor that tradition when she announced her opinion in Shelby County, quoting from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but adding her own emphasis. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice if there is a steadfast commitment to see the task through to completion. Chief Justice Roberts' assessment in 2013 that the days of discrimination in voting were behind us has been conclusively disproven by subsequent events, but his words are still the law of the land. We face serious challenges in voting, ranging from foreign interference to suppression to gerrymandering to delayed results due to mail-in voting because of the pandemic. Those problems may seem overwhelming, but the woman who saw them and the future, if the Voting Rights Act was gutted, with such clear foresight, would not have given up. She would have persisted, like she did when she took on inequity against women in the early part of her career. We need a steadfast commitment to guaranteeing the right to vote for all Americans, no matter who they vote for. And the new Voting Rights Act would honor Justice Ginsburg's legacy. She would want us to keep that umbrella open. I really appreciate you all letting me kind of talk about Justice Ginsburg, because she has created so many opportunities for all of us, women and men, in equality, in the way that we're viewed, in the way that we're treated, both in marriage, out of marriage, in the workplace, and in the professional setting. So let's make sure we're honoring Justice Ginsburg. Let's make sure we're keeping that umbrella open. And let's make sure we are electing candidates that will hold up the values that were put forth in the Voting Rights Act. And that starts from the top of the ticket all the way down. Thank you all. And again, that's a piece by Joyce Vance. I'm so excited to announce and introduce someone that I consider a mentor and a friend. Jay Parmlee does not need any introduction. He is not only a veteran of Democratic politics, but he is someone who has brought his brilliance and, more importantly, his stability, his ability to keep our team focused, and just a positive energy to the SCDP. And y'all know I love my Trav, but Jay has the hardest job in managing Trav. So I think he deserves an extra pay bump for doing all that. But Jay, I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of you, how appreciative the GCDP is of you. And I want to thank you for joining us. And please share all that you're doing for us to win in November.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to be with you all this morning. I really I really paused there when you said something about brilliance, because it's 9:20 in the morning on Saturday, and I'm not sure how brilliant I am at 9:20, because these days we're putting in, everybody is, but we're sure putting in long hours, and so it's good to be with the Greenville County Democrats this morning on this Saturday morning. We are 38 days away from this really important election, and we've just got a lot going. I mean, I've never been, I guess I've never been so busy, but there are just so many things that we're doing at the state level that I'm seeing going on the ground in our counties and with candidates. We have the best slate of candidates I think we've probably ever fielded from top to bottom. You guys in Greenville, I know you have really important local races. We got great legislative candidates. You have good county council candidates that I know you're working hard on. You got a sheriff's race. You got so much on your plate, and you also have the great Kim Nelson, who is just doing a bang up job. I'll tell you, I know that. Let me just on the fourth district race a second. I know that people talk a lot. At least you hear from us. You hear us talking a lot about protecting Joe Cunningham in the first. We absolutely have to get him reelected. And in many ways, if you haven't been following it, the second district, the Adair-Ford Boroughs is getting a lot of attention, but we should also be paying every bit of attention to Kim. This district is changing. Kim is just a brilliant, bright, progressive voice, and is perfect for this time. I mean, I think there's a lot of movement going on out there, and we should never write off any district, but I think we should all double down and focus hard, particularly in the fourth, because we can, we can catch some people sleeping, and that's the most important thing. So I really appreciate the work that Kim and her team have been doing. And let me just tell you, this last week in particular, this Senate race, it is really something. If you had asked me a year ago if we would be tied going into the last 30 days of this election season in the U.S. Senate, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have probably told you, I would have believed we would have been close. I would have believed we'd have been within single digits. But there's a big movement among the electorate, and I guess I have the luxury and pleasure of looking at a ton of crosstabs in these polls that are done all across the state, and the electorate is fired up. I mean, our base is fired up. Democrats are fired up across the state, but there is a huge swath of Republicans. I call them, sort of smart thinking, moderate Republicans who are tired. They're tired of being represented by a moron and Donald Trump. They're embarrassed, and honestly, Lindsay is embarrassing them. They don't see Lindsay as the same person that they sent to Washington close to 20 years ago. They don't, to the Senate. He's been in Washington longer than that, but they don't see the same person, and it's reflected. You can see the difference. Lindsey Graham is trailing Donald Trump literally by 6 to 8 points in almost every poll I'm seeing in South Carolina, which means that there are some people who are still hanging on with Trump, but they think Lindsey is even more offensive than Donald Trump. And that really says something on the Republican side. Jamie is carrying a stronger base of Democrats than Lindsey is carrying a stronger base of Republicans going into the final days. And then you have this good swath of independents, people who are undecided, who probably don't really belong to either party. And particularly after, I haven't seen anything after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg to sort of see where these are moving. But I do think all of this leads to a really fascinating time. Congressman Clyburn was in our office yesterday, And I looked at him and I said, Jamie's going to win this thing. And he said, I know. And I said, Congressman, did you ever think you would see the day in South Carolina where this political climate has changed so much? And he said, it's literally changing so rapidly. He's like, I had hoped and I had thought that we had a chance, but I'm a true believer. I mean, he says, there's an undercurrent going on in this election cycle that we probably can't quite measure. And so I think that bodes well up and down the ticket. I'm glad we're tied kind of going in the last 30 days in the Senate race, but it's making a big difference. I think it'll make a big difference. We'll see the biggest difference maybe at the legislative level. All from, doesn't matter what part of the state we're in. I think we're going to see gains in the legislature, in the House and in the Senate. And they've not really thought we could pick up seats in the House. And in the Senate, we're fighting tooth and nail. We can reclaim the majority in the Senate. And it's just a good feeling knowing that the electorate is responding to our messages, or our candidates are responding positively to the way the electorate feels. And I think a lot's going to happen, but it's going to happen with a lot of hard work. To be honest, voters are not just going to turn out. We are facing, with COVID-19, we're facing something we've never done before, which is done a primarily virtual campaign. Now, I know people are going door to door and canvassing and lit dropping in places, but this is not widespread. We just don't have as many people on the streets as we have had in the past. We're not doing as many as evidenced of this morning's gathering. I didn't have to get in the car and drive to Greenville, although I love coming to Greenville, but it's made my life a little easier because I can participate in far more counties by just getting up. And this morning I haven't even made it to the office. I made it to my sofa. So that's a big difference. But as evidenced by this, we're just not doing as many in-person events, which is okay, but it's a different sort of challenge. So we're spending a lot more time talking to voters, in particular by phone and by text and online, honestly. And we've never gone through an election cycle like this. So it's sort of double the work in many ways. Last weekend, just so you know what we're doing, we have about 125 staff on the ground all throughout the state. And no, they're not all organizers, but we've got a lot of people doing a lot of different things. We have, in fact, the second largest department at the party is voter protection right now. So we're doing a lot of different things, but we've got a bunch of people. And last weekend alone, which was our 46 days out weekend of action, volunteers across the state made 125,000 phone calls on Saturday alone. We sent just over 100,000 texts, and we're sort of tamping down the text. There's a point where we're going to burn through our universes, so we're being very judicious in how many texts we send, trying not to bug people too much. The phone calls, we're still working through. 125,000 is a lot of phone calls, but we have about 1.2 million people in terms of individuals we're working through and talking to constantly. And these calls are for up and down the ticket. We're doing for the U.S. Senate, for Congress, and for State House and State Senate. We can't get to the county level because it's just too many people to put on a phone call. But we are making these calls all across the state and these texts, trying to find out where people are and to remind them how important it is to vote. But the second part of this is we're doing a lot of voter education work because of the constant changes to the election structure. You all may or may not have read, just this last week, we won a federal judge struck down the witness requirement to the absentee ballot, that you didn't have to have a witness. Then there was a 3-judge panel overturned it and stayed the decision. But then late last night, the entire Fourth Circuit decided to take it up. So they haven't overturned the stay, but they're taking it up. So this week we'll have a full hearing. And I'm confident when the Fourth Circuit hears it that Judge Childs' decision, which is the original federal judge, her decision will stand and will strike down this ridiculous witness requirement. You can't argue that COVID is real and then expect people to have to go find someone else to witness their ballot. It doesn't make any sense. So, and other states have struck down this requirement. So I feel pretty confident. So, but we're spending far more time just on what I call not simple, but important voter protection measures. We've been in court more than I can possibly imagine and recount, and compared to any other year, whether it's federal court or it's state court, we've been fighting hard to push back against the GOP's reluctance to change and ease our voting restrictions. And, you know, the General Assembly did a great job, at least in just a few weeks ago, in removing the requirement for absentee voting, whether it's in person. Believe it or not, you had to, when you vote in person absentee, you sign that you're not able to vote on election day or meet one of those many requirements to vote absentee. So the General Assembly lifted the restrictions. Where we were saddened that we didn't get through the ballot drop boxes, because we thought that would have made it a lot easier for people. Many states do this safely, but at least you can take the ballot into the county to the county election commission or satellite location to be accepted by a staff person on election day up until 7 p.m., which is a really important change. So the General Assembly has been somewhat responsive. It's just the Republicans have stymied us at each sort of turn on this. So thank you, Chandra Dillard. Thank you, Carl Allen, for doing the right thing, and Representative Simpson, Robinson Simpson as well, for helping us do that, for helping us get those laws changed, because that's really very important. So we spent a bunch of time on voter protection. We're spending a ton of time on organizing, and now we're moving into GOTV. And let me tell you a couple of things we're doing. The first week of October, we're going to start basically on a 30-day caravan tour across the state, going to early voting locations, going to every county, going into particular communities, and we're going to even small communities, all in every county, where we have a team of people going in, just trying to, since we're not canvassing widespread, we're trying to do everything we can do to just let people know we're it's election time, and to get our base out in particular. So we're going to do a lot of press work. We're going to do some small, and they're not rallies, we're going to do some small, very socially distanced events over the next 30 days. So we're going to kick that off the first week of October. And then we're just really pounding people on the phones. We're pounding people by mail. We just upped our mail budget again, to add another 15 or 16 pieces of mail. Don't get excited. That doesn't mean every person's going to get another 15 pieces of mail. But we have these universes that which we're trying to remind people and let them know, mostly about voter education, how to vote early, where to vote early, where your polling place is. There's been a lot of changes in polling places for election day across the state because we have a shortage of workers, even though I keep getting frustrated that the state election commission tells us we don't, but we know we do when we talk to county election commissions. Luckily, you've got a well-run county election commission in Greenville, and you're kind of the model for the country, or for the state, rest of the state. And I have to tell you, as frustrated as you might get from time to time, we have many counties that have worse, just terrible, we've now found county election systems. So we've been working really hard on each of those things and trying to educate people along the way. So this has been a unique, we've never spent this much time on voter education, just simply telling people how to vote, because it's changing so much. So I'm hopeful that those efforts will pay off. So the last thing I'll say is we're doing a lot of digital work right now as well. And this is across the board. You don't have to be young or old. We're reaching more and more people digitally, and we've really spent a lot of money. I don't even know what the total number is, and it's going to ramp up even more in the next 30 days because we can take the voter file and we can take our universes and match it. So we don't know your IP address, but we can match it. Believe me, we're not watching what you're doing, but we can match it and make sure you're getting the messages. So when you open your computer, well, you're active, but think about all these folks who are not active in the Democratic Party and who may just sort of pay a little bit of attention. We're able to communicate with them and then like it. We get a great response out of our digital work. So we're doing a lot of paid digital work as well as mail. We'll also be rolling out, we are doing some lit dropping and canvassing. So in the next few days, you're going to be getting our door hangers. We have door hangers all across the state, which basically talks about early voting, lists our slate of candidates up and down the ballot. And we're making that available. Some counties have done their own, but for those that haven't, we're getting those out the next few days as well. And this is, normally we would, of course, be having all these rallies and we'd be having these gatherings, and that's just not possible. But we're working through some online GOTV rallies for the end of the month, and also trying to get Jamie in particular coordinated with some of the down ballot candidates to where we can get him across the state virtually, if not in person. So there's a great deal going. I would just say to you that no matter what happens on election day, one of the things I'm really proud of is that Jamie's campaign has trusted the state party, and they've really invested their entire field and organizing and GOTV side in the state party. And there's not a separate organization. They keep transferring the money, and we keep bulking up. That will hopefully help all of our down ballot candidates as well. So there is good coordination. There's a lot of movement over the next 30 days. But our goal is, bottom line, we need about 1.2 million votes to win this U.S. Senate race. And we know that every voter we turn out, there in some places there are votes for sheriff that's going to help go to be votes for Jamie. There are votes for Jamie that's going to help a congressional candidate. The congressional candidates are going to help the state house candidates. All these work together, and we just simply have to turn out as many voters as humanly possible. Actually, there's one more, and that is just because we're going to have an election day on the 3rd of November does not mean that we're going to know who wins necessarily on the 3rd of November. We're projecting over 1 million absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, will be cast in this election in South Carolina. They've never seen anything like it. Our local election officials are, when I say they're prepared, they know it's coming, but we've never had to manage that many absentee ballots to count. And those ballots can be hand delivered until 7 p.m. at the county, at the county election office. So I'm preparing everybody a lot more about this, but just prepare yourselves. In some cases, we are not going to know the winners of these races on election night. And even though we do normally know that, we may not know that this time. So we're just trying to prepare everybody that just this great influx of ballots are going to, now we'll have the election day tallies. That's not going to slow anything down. But these absentee ballots will take longer. So just know that in some of these cases, we may have some races settled that night, but others, it may take a few days, and that's going to be a change. But we're doing everything we can to sort of let our folks know, don't worry. And we've got a legal team ready to go literally the day after or the night of the election to make sure that we're on top of all of these possibilities across the state, including recounts, which may very well come into play at some point. So there is a lot going. There's a lot of excitement. We're we are just working around the clock, really, at this point, and so is most of our staff. And we've got great volunteers. That's probably the most exciting thing. We have had 17,000 people, and that number's probably increased in the last few days. 17,000 people go to scdp.org and sign up to volunteer, or go to jamieharrison.com. Just between those two places, 17,000. That doesn't count. That doesn't count people who have volunteered for years for the Greenville County Party who may not have gone to the website to sign up. These are just, I'm not going to say they're all new, but these are really, we're going to have all of this data when it's over. So we know who all of these people are. We're desperately, we have organizers calling through hundreds of these people every day to try to get them scheduled to work and to call and to text or to help. We've sent 200,000 postcards, volunteers have. I mean, there's just all of this work, and these individuals who, many of them we've never seen before, have signed up. So one of the real positives of this is, yes, we're trying to get them all plugged in now, but after this election, we'll have all of this data, and that means a lot too. So I see Don Bingham there. When Don wins this seat, we'll have even more. You're doing a great job. I mean, some really creative work going on up there. So if I'm not only looking at this as an opportunity to flip South Carolina right now, but we're also collecting great information and great people for the future. So this is really a twofold process. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I've probably talked too long, but I'm happy to. If somebody has a quick question, I'm always happy to answer it or put it in the chat, and I'll be glad to answer it there. But it's good to be with you. Keep up the good work, and I am confident that on maybe not election night, but soon after, they're going to look at Greenville and go, "What in the world happened up there?" It's becoming more and more Democratic. That's the good thing. So, with that, Eli, the floor is back to you.
Really quick question, Amanda. I love that we are building our bench. You're going to be a part of that. Our county level folks, our state house. Really quick question from Roxanne J.
Sure.
Do you think the Lincoln Project's efforts are helping us in South Carolina?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know what you thought about that Parasite ad. I wasn't as excited about that one. I thought it was a little graphic, but on the other hand, I do think they've been helpful because they've just gone right after Lindsay. There's no doubt, and they're powerful. So I do think they've been a big help. And another piece too, I'm really proud of. A lot of these other states, I know this sounds crazy to us. We've been watching the Senate race unfold, but a lot of these outside groups have gone into other states first. And so we've gotten ourselves where we are with just the strength of our own activist base and our own candidates. And Jamie's fundraising prowess has allowed him to be on the air nonstop since March. And that's really been helpful. But the Lincoln Project and mail too, not just the air and digital, but the Lincoln Project is probably, I think, the most effective outside group that's really helping us, at least as I can tell, on the airwaves. Great question. Is the current situation with the Supreme Court nomination going to hurt or help Lindsay? I don't know the answer to that. To be brutally honest, we're polling on this right now, and I've never been one to say, "Oh, I'm going to believe what the polls say," but it helps to kind of have these snapshots. It's not backed. But what I can tell you is at least from the couple things I've seen, I don't think it may be a net even. I think it's emboldening our base and people who are just ticked off, but it's also doing the same for the Republicans. I think it's also emboldening their base. However, the Republican Party's base seems to respond better to Supreme Court issues, interestingly enough, than the Democratic base. It's just crazy, except this time. I think the Supreme Court right now, particularly because of Justice Ginsburg's death and it being her and the pivotal role she's played, I think this is doing more to sort of fire up our side and some left-leaning independents than we've ever seen. So I think it may end up being a net even, which I'll take. I'll take that. If it fires more of us up, and if it fires the Republicans up, it's probably a net even. What I'm really looking for in everything I've seen, if Lindsey is trailing Trump, like if Trump, among Republicans, he's like 6 or 8 points below Trump on Republican support. And what I don't want to see happen is that that this Supreme Court mess, if you will, erodes that, where Trump and Lindsey's support become the same. I think we've done a good enough job. I hope we've done a good enough job sort of pounding on Lindsey to keep that from happening. But that's what I'm watching. And if that happens, it just means we have to have a better turnout game. We have to make sure all of our people vote, and we can still do this. But that's what I'm looking at right now. But I think right now it's a net even for both sides. Although I don't have numbers yet to back that up, that's sort of what I'm feeling and from the early stuff I'm seeing.
Awesome. Thank you again, Jay, for all that you're doing. I know you're not sleeping much. None of us are. And we really appreciate all of the information that you shared with us. You know, we'll be reaching out from Greenville. Thank you. Send our best to the chairman and your team.
I will. He's driving to Williamsburg County today for a outside event that they're doing there. So he's on the road, and I'm going to head the 2 blocks to the office here in just a second. So you all keep doing great work there, Eli. Thank you for your leadership, and for all, Amanda, I see you there, all these great candidates. Thank you. Thanks for running. Just 38 more days, everybody. Hang in there. Do everything you can do, and I think we're gonna have a great election day.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jay.
See y'all. Guys, take care.
Bye. Thank you so much to our executive director. And I have now the opportunity to introduce someone that's working extremely hard for our party, our fundraising coordinator, Regina Waldrop, and she's going to share a little bit of information to you about our Equal Justice Forum. It's very pertinent with the conversation about the Supreme Court and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thank you, Regina, and please take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Eli. I asked Eli if I could take a minute to remind everybody of an upcoming event. This Thursday, October 1st at 7 p.m., the Greenville County Democratic Party is hosting our inaugural Equal Justice Forum. And the event, Democracy at a Crossroads, is a moderator-led panel discussion regarding the injustices we face today at the hands of an authoritarian leader, and really as a result of having a lack of representation in our state and across many of our local communities. And the panel will discuss what's happening in our government, as well as what we can do about it. So please join us. And our moderator is the Honorable Ricardo Urbina. He is a former U.S. District Judge from the District of Columbia, who has become a friend and is a longtime supporter of the Greenville County Democratic Party. He and Corey were members of the fundraising committee and took a step back to get involved in some other things in our community, but are still passionate about the work that we're doing here at home and wanted to do something to motivate voters locally during this GOTV period. So that really is the intention of this Equal Justice Forum and how it was spawned. Ricardo just brings a wealth of knowledge from DC to us. I have not yet had the opportunity to ask him how well he knew Justice Ginsburg, but I am sure he will come prepared on Thursday to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. And I know that we've talked in the past about the U.S. district courts and how valuable and important they are. And the 200 judges that have been placed on those courts and how and what that means to us. So I really look forward to his leading this panel. In addition to Ricardo, the esteemed Mr. Frank Holloman will be on the panel. Frank is a senior attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center, and he is going to come and talk about environmental justice. And every time that I talk to Frank, I learn something amazing and incredible and new. He is a former U.S. Deputy Secretary of Education. He and Dick Riley went to Washington, D.C. under President Bill Clinton. And he is just the most delightful person to speak to about things that are happening in South Carolina and across our nation regarding education as well as environmental justice. So we're honored to have him. Teresa Nesbitt Cosby is also on the panel. Teresa is a Furman University professor who teaches constitutional law. And she has a firm grasp on how systematic racism has been nipping at the heels of equal justice in our federal government for a long time. And so I'm really intrigued by Teresa, and I think you will be as well, and you'll have an opportunity to hear from Teresa about that. The third and not least member, I know you heard a little bit about what Jay was talking about that's happening in our state, but Chandra Young-Scott has been at the center of a lot of those activities. She's the director of voter protection at the South Carolina Democratic Party. She is a former ACLU South Carolina director. She is just the most impressive and respectful person, honestly. She just brings great enthusiasm for what she does, and she's going to be talking about voter protection. She has a long history that she can bring to the table, but she knows what's going on in our state right now. We'll talk in detail about that, and you'll have an opportunity to ask her some questions. So please register for the event. You can go to greenvilledemocrats.com, and on our homepage, there is a link to register for the event. I also want to mention that we are still receiving host donors for the event. And the reason why this is important, I know that you've all been responsive to us. We had, I do want to give a quick shout out to the fundraising committee. We have a number of individuals on our committee who have been with us for a long time, and then some new members of our committee. I just want to do a quick roll call. Ron Cowan, Anita LeBold, Jill and Fred Erickson, Corinne Craig, Karen Bacharach, Jonathan Sweeney, Ashley Newton, Mike Roosevelt, and then those who've stepped aside but were instrumental in tastings on the town earlier in the year: Deb Drucker, Steve Price, Kate Franch, Corey Urbina, and Ricardo Urbina, have just rolled up their sleeves and been giving so much. And I left two individuals for mention last, Linda Director and Danny Furman. We started really trying to put our heads together earlier in the year, in the March, April, and May timeframe, as the pandemic, as we realized this, how we were going to have to do everything remote and different than what we've been used to doing in the past, and we struggled. I mean, it's been hard. We know we need money to function and operate as a party. It's just a fact. And these two individuals really came through with some creative ideas. Linda spearheaded our 2020 Recurring Giver campaign. Some of you have responded to that and become recurring givers, and I cannot tell you how much that means. We went from 7 to 31 pretty quickly. Hopefully we'll be at 50 by the end of the year. That's a goal. And then Danny Norman, who is just this young, delightful person who's come back to Greenville after living in New York City and Brooklyn for a period of time, has come back just recently, and she is spearheading our Tuesday trivia night. So look for those things on our website, and please join us for Tuesday trivia. It's a lot of fun. But in any case, thank you so much to my committee who's helped, Karen Bacharach, Ashley Newton, Anita, and I did not mention Mike Roosevelt and Laura Haight, but they have been so helpful to us, writing articles and promoting all of the things that we're doing. We just couldn't operate without them. And the reason why this is all important, as I started to say, is because the party needs funds to operate, to plan, to move forward. And we are doing a lot. We're going to be nearly dry of the money that we've made this year on November 3rd. And we all know how much work on November 4th and ongoing that we're going to have to do. So all of your pennies and dollars and anything that you can give is so important to us. And so we really appreciate that. If you'd like to host the event for Thursday, there's still an opportunity to do that. You can email me at regina.waldrop@gmail. Or you can contact me by phone, 864-643-7051, and I'll put that up in a text right now on our site here. So just look for that in a message. That's all I have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share more about the event, Eli.
Thanks, Regina, and thank you to the fundraising committee. We're going to keep moving along in our program. I am so excited.
Hey, my mom lives over there.
I am so excited to start with our slate of Senate candidates. As we mentioned, and Jay mentioned earlier, we have a real opportunity for a Southern state to flip the state Senate. We, as South Carolinians, have seen what the Republicans do when they're in charge. Plug to our GCDP messaging. I want everyone to start sharing it. It's called the Republican Record. When we put them in charge, bad things happen. So I'm really excited to introduce our first Senate candidate today. We want to choose a new direction for Senate District 5. Michael is a married father who's a small business owner. He has been committed to the issues of his district. He is running against someone who has a legacy of not only demeaning, but dehumanizing women. And we need someone in the Senate from Senate District 5 that will lead with democratic values. So it's my pleasure to introduce our candidate for Senate District 5, Michael McCord.
Thank you, Eli, for that endorsement. And like I said last night in a speech, I've kind of put my heels in the ground for education. And I know Republicans are jobs, but we can bring all the jobs we want to South Carolina. If we don't have to educate a workforce to fill those jobs, out-of-state people are going to come take those jobs. South Carolina right now, our kids are already in a second-class status because of the disquality of education we get. Sumter Tire down in the middle part of the state actually tried to pull out because of the lack of educated applications they were getting. So our education system really is in trouble. We actually fell back a ranking in child whereabouts because of our lack of education. Our teachers are not paid enough. The schools have not been funded adequately, required by the state constitution since 2001. I've spoken with Republican educators, Republican teachers all across Spartanburg, District 1 and Greenville. They are behind me because Mr. Corbin does not support public education. He's actually voted against every chance the teachers had to get a pay raise until this time when he knew that the House of Representatives wouldn't take it up. So Mr. Corbin's not a very good guy. District 5 has not improved in 10 years at all. We have some of the worst funded schools in the Slater-Marietta area. The roads are very horrible around District 5 if you're not in Taylor's or Greer. And like Eli has said, he has said some very disparaging comments about women, about minorities, about LGBTQ individuals. He was one of 2 senators that voted absent on removing the Confederate flag. So he has a long track record of being, he's almost out Trump in a lot of things. So we need volunteers, we need door knockers, we need your financial support. We just put in an order for 500 more signs, so we're going to blanket the district. And like I said, he's just a really bad guy. We have a very good plan for the South Carolina education. We're going to raise teacher starting pay at the state level to $45,000 a year. And then there will be no more of this teachers walking out because they'll have their money. I learned here recently teachers have to use their own money to buy the paper that they print the classroom assignments on. And we don't pay them enough to have to buy supplies. We pay them barely enough to live a livable life. So we've got to fix that. And if we don't fix the education system, it doesn't matter how good our roads are, it doesn't matter how good our infrastructure is. We're going to be in trouble because we're not going to have anyone to fill these high-tech jobs at BMW and Volvo, and Boeing. So we're getting ready to be really, really in trouble if we don't solve this issue quickly. And I know if we get me, Hal, and Dr. Bingham down there, we can put up the good fight and get some stuff done.
Michael, would you share a little bit about where District 5 encompasses? So tell us a little bit about your district.
Okay, so I have all of Travelers Rest that's not the city. Hal, fortunately, got that blue part of the county. I've got Slater, Marietta, Tigerville, Gownsville, Landrum, parts of Emmon, parts of Lyman, parts of Taylor, parts of Greer, that area there. There's also a couple of rural counties, not rural counties, but rural towns like O'Neill, Gownsville, little towns that nobody's ever heard of that are in the district as well. Hal got all the good populous places, and I got the rural places. So, but we're doing really good. If you know anything about Taylor's, Reedville School Road actually divides Senate 5 and Senate 6. And I just happen to have lived on the side of Senate 5. So we have some populous areas like Taylor's and Greer that are our focal point, but we're also going into places that Democrats normally don't go into, like Slater, Marietta, in that area where Judy Buckley laid the groundwork for me to be able to go in there and perform better. I still, talking to voters in that area, they say, "Oh, do you know Judy?" I said, "Yeah, oh, we voted for her." And these are Republicans, they're telling me we voted for her. So the North Greenville group and Judy, they definitely laid the groundwork for someone like me to come in and hopefully seal the deal. And I also think the North Greenville group will also be very helpful to Hal and his endeavors as well. So thank you, Ruth Todd, and that whole group there. They did a phenomenal job.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I know Laura is going to drop in a quick chat on how to find you on our website, to link to your website, and also to sign up to volunteer. Thank you for stepping up and running. And let's make sure we are flipping the Senate. It is my great pleasure right now to introduce a patriot for progress. Hal Wu is someone who is dedicated to veterans issues, has led with compassion in championing being a resource and a connector to veterans coming to Greenville and the upstate. He is a small business owner, as well as a jovial person to anyone that's been around Hal. Hal, I like the backdrop with your signs, and Hal is running for our Senate District 6, which, to Michael's point, has been an area where the Democrats have really, really picked up because of people like Judy Buckley, because of people like Tina Belgi, because of the work of the amazing North Greenville Democratic Group and all of their leadership. So Hal, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Yep, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I want to give a shout out to the North Greenville group as well. They have been absolutely phenomenal. My name is Hal. I am a patriot, proud patriot for progress. And a little bit about myself. I am an immigrant born in China, and I earned my citizenship by serving in the U.S. Army in 2010 to 2014. And I'm proud of the fact that I was trained as a biochemist from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and now I'm a successful small business owner here in the upstate. I have had the distinct pleasure of serving my community in west side of Greenville in Berea by mentoring students out of Monteview Elementary School, as well as working as a board member on mental health care platforms like Mental Health America, Greenville County. And I want to tell everybody that my most passionate platform and my most passionate causes are healthcare, education, and infrastructure. And the reason why is because I see the necessity for these things on the ground. In terms of education, the school where I mentor at, Monteview Elementary School, is a Title I school. There are homeless kids there are kids that don't have food and they have to come to school in order to eat food so that they can survive for another day. And these are the schools that my opponent has voted year in, year out to defund. The Title I funding in Mountview Elementary School has lost $100,000 in 2017, $5,600 in 2018, and another $1,700 in 2019. So while South Carolina as a state have had budget surplus every single year for the past 5 years, those who can least afford it, the homeless kids who are going to our public schools, are suffering the consequences of not enough funding. That is unacceptable. In terms of healthcare, since 2010, South Carolina has voted not to expand Medicaid, Medicare, and over 300,000 South Carolinians are suffering. I don't know if most of you guys know about this, but my mom unfortunately passed away from terminal cancer earlier this year. And there are 300,000 South Carolinians who, on the last days of their life, have to make the heartfelt decision to whether to choose between leaving mountains of debt for their family or go on and save those money for their family. They're having to make these heart-wrenching decisions purely because my opponent and the Republican-led Congress, the Republican-led state legislature, and the Republican governor voted not to expand Medicaid, Medicare in our state. Public infrastructure. We have a serious shortage of housing in Greenville. And kudos to the city leadership and the county leadership, but our state has been completely silent on providing resources for homelessness. As a veteran, one of my most passionate projects has been housing transitioning veterans coming out of the military, coming out of a lot of these places, and they're coming to Greenville for the opportunity, and they're finding nothing but unfortunate homelessness. And so I have been proud to work with Upstate Warrior Solutions, and I'm actually calling out to my opponent via the nonprofit that I support so that we can have a debate, we can have a forum, and talk about the hundreds of homeless veterans that are living out on the streets right now, that are living out in motels right now. Not just homelessness. There's an entire cause around homelessness, around public transportation, around public transit, around people who cannot afford to live where they work and who cannot work where they live. And I would love to talk about it with all of you guys individually, because these are issues that cannot be solved individually. It has to be solved on a state level through funding from our state budget surpluses and comprehensive plans. You can support me at my website at howtoserve.com, at HAOTOSERVE.com. And we need volunteers. We need phone bankers, text bankers. And we need people to tell your neighbors that we have a chance. We truly have a chance to flip the state senate in South Carolina in this year 2020, where we have a new census. And if we don't do what we must do, the next 10 years could be very, very troubling for our fellow South Carolinians. And with that, I'll yield back to the chairman.
I like it how you can reclaim your time. If you're going to speak like that, you can hold the mic, sir. I appreciate how I get to work with him, and y'all can see his passion. Each of the Senate, we have 4 Senate candidates. Let's win all 4 of these seats. Let's win all 4 of these seats and send common sense, passionate, intelligent people that care, that actually have empathy and compassion for our community. I know Michael kind of highlighted it, just share really briefly, because we're running a little, where is your district? and just talk about the places you want to serve within your district.
Okay. So I couldn't name all 35 of the precinct that composes of my district, but I will not do that to you guys. So it is basically all of the city of Travelers Rest. It takes the State Park Road. The southern part of the State Park Road is the boundary. And then State Park Road turns into Reed School Road, and it covers about half of Taylor's. And then if you live in the census-designated area of Wade Hampton, you're in my district, where it comes down to Northwood Middle School, as well as Brooklyn Elementary School, so north of Old Spartanburg Road. And then it takes a little bit south on Haywood Road, covers all of the apartments and the neighborhoods on both sides of Pelham, between East North Street and Haywood Road, in the Spring Forest, as well as Greenville 25 precinct. And then it goes over into Stone, Wade Hampton, and then Stone Avenue. And Stone Avenue is the boundary between the northern part of Stone is my district. Southern part of Stone Avenue is Senator Carl Allen's district. And it shifts into Poinsett Highway. Well, technically it goes up Rutherford Road between Stone Avenue and Rutherford Road, and then takes a little detour when Rutherford Road goes into North Pleasantburg. And then it goes from North Pleasantburg to West Blue Ridge. And so everything west of North Pleasantburg and everything everything east of North Pleasantburg and everything north of West Blue Ridge Road is my district. And then, of course, the western boundary is the Saluda River, the same as Greenville County.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hal, and thank you for your service as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to quickly, before I jump to our next Senate candidate, I do want to make one quick pivot. We were unfortunately able to coordinate our schedule with our senator, Senator Carl Allen, who is running for District 7 in the state Senate. Senator Allen has been a longtime advocate for education, for criminal justice reform, for serving the people of his community. He was a former House member and now serves us as our delegation leader in the Greenville County delegation as a Democrat. So please, 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 even though he was not able to join us today, remember to support and vote for Senator Carl Allen if you are in his district. We want to make sure that, again, we get all 4 of our Senate candidates elected to Columbia. We need all 4 of them there. It is my great pleasure to introduce our next Senate candidate, who I had the opportunity to have a wonderful conversation with, and am just so excited that I get to vote for an awesome, awesome, awesome state Senate candidate. I shared with Dr. Bingham that my whole family is on board. My mom is excited to vote for her. My sisters are so thrilled that they can put a woman in the state Senate with her background. I also want to just shout out her amazing team. One of my dear friends, Nikki Smith, who's on this call. She has a great team in Macklin, and just women that are showing that they belong at the highest level of politics. So Dr. Bingham, I am so excited because you are going to be delivering for our future. With your background, with your career, with your pizzazz, we're so excited that you have a clip of Greenville, and please take it away and share with folks about your message and your campaign.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. I am coming live to you from the historic Pelham Mill Park. My team is out here this morning doing things with the public and introducing them. Everybody is socially distanced, of course, but we're able to hand out flyers and bottles of water to people who want them. And it's a great way to be outdoors and to be able to meet with the public, but do so safely because they're coming to us, and it's a wonderful place. We've got a dog park here. And everybody is enjoying, even though it's a little bit overcast this morning. So I appreciate everybody being on the call, and I especially appreciate the words by Eli and by Hal and by Michael. It is so energizing to hear you guys speak. I am so excited about the idea of all of us being in the Senate together, being able to work on these issues, for me in particular, through a lens of the way I see things through public health. I think that this is going to be an amazing team for all of us to get elected to the Senate. And I am particularly thankful about the Republican record that you guys have been putting out. I think it's super useful information that is done in a very digestible and succinct fashion for the people to understand some of the reasons why we really need better balance in our legislature. When you have a legislature that is being led by the Republicans the way that it is now, there is zero incentive for them to meet anybody in the middle or to find compromise on these issues. And really what we need to have to do is bring balance into the Senate, not just balance in the number of people from the different parties, but also balance in the folks that are there for the lived experiences of all South Carolinians, and not just one representative swath of that group of people. We need to have more women. We need to have more public health professionals. We need to have more minority and diverse voices there, because we all know that when you have diverse thinking, you have better problem solving. This is just a fact, and there's data to prove that, and there's economics to prove that. And so one of the biggest reasons that I am running is because I have a passion for public health, and I see the issues that are affecting our state. When you look at the metrics where South Carolina ranks at the bottom, which is unfortunately so many, but those metrics with healthcare, and particularly with Medicaid expansion in places that have Medicaid expansion and how much better they're doing right now during the pandemic. But for healthcare, for education, for our environment, and actually the one thing that we do the best at, we still don't do great at, and that is infrastructure. And if you look at the funds that are being put towards the infrastructure in our state, we spend less per mile of road and we spend less per driver than many of the other states do. I mean, we're in the bottom third, even though that's the highest place that we rank in any of these metrics. So when you look at the things that all have public health implications, you could go across the board. There are some things that people think about as just social justice issues, such as gun safety reform or issues around systemic racism. Those are not social justice issues by themselves. Those are public health issues to me, because they affect the lives of our constituents in South Carolina in profound and tangible ways, such as housing, the way that Hal was talking about, such as economics and jobs opportunity. And there are so many different ways that we can come about this and incentivize people to have some change. But we have to do this by having better balance in our legislature and having more people in the legislature who represent actual South Carolinians. And so for me, I'm going to be representing District 12. And District 12 is essentially the western half of the western half of Spartanburg County, and then a swath of Greenville on the east side as well. So in an area where we are right now, there is Pelham and Thornblade and those areas there, down to Simpsonville and down to the Five Forks area. That is all in District 12. It's a giant district. 85 goes through the middle, and we have BMW, we have Pelham Hospital, we have the Inland Port, we have Michelin. So we have a diverse group of businesses that are also part of this district. And when you hear that, you have to know that we have a tremendous amount of growth. So there's a lot of different people here than were here 4 years ago, the last time we had this election. And I think that we have a lot of people that are very angry about the current state of affairs in South Carolina. And the fact that I'm a physician running on a healthcare platform energizes people. They want somebody in the legislature who can speak out about the different public health concerns that we have in South Carolina and actually contribute to these conversations in a meaningful way because of my professional background. And I think that that's a very powerful thing, because when elected, I will be the only physician in the entire South Carolina legislature, the House or the Senate, and the first female physician that's ever been in the South Carolina legislature, the House or the Senate, which is just about time for a change. I would think we could all agree on that. So I really appreciate the fact that you guys are joining us this morning. I would love to have your support in the way of having volunteers. We always need volunteers on a political campaign and can find something for your particular skill set or time schedule. We also need donations, particularly now when it's so difficult to have large groups of people to get together. Those donations go a long way to help us meet targeted voters in the ways that we're able to do that. And then also at the end of the day, voting, because voting is how you actually get elected, right? And so making sure that you are registered to vote, which I'm certain everybody on this call is, but making sure that those handful of people in your life that you may not know if they're registered to vote, that they get registered to vote, and then we get them out to the polls. And I really appreciate all your support. Thanks so much. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bingham. It's such a pleasure hearing you, and we need to have that kind of perspective. You see people at their best and at their worst, and we know the Republicans are usually at their worst. So you're going to be able to deal with them in the General Assembly because you know how to deal with pressure. You have such a great background, And I really just appreciate, y'all hear those glass ceilings breaking? That's the Dr. Bingham in the Senate. That's the Amandas and Sams in the county council. That's what's happening all around this great country. So thank you so much, Dr. Bingham, for what you're doing. I have the pleasure of talking about a really important piece to our puzzle here in Greenville locally, and that is the race for sheriff. We know that criminal justice and the way our policing is executed is so important to everything that we do. It's not only the execution of it, but it's the implementation and the planning that is so necessary. And we have a candidate for sheriff in Paul Guy who has a plan to deal with staffing and administrative issues that have plagued our sheriff's office for so long. We have a string of successive sheriffs who feel that their job is to protect a certain swath of this community and look down upon a different swath of this community. There are two levels of justice that we see not only in Greenville, but we see across the spectrum in South Carolina and unfortunately across the country. We have the opportunity as a county to elect someone in Paul Guy who will bring something different to the table. He will bring a oversight component that is not currently present in our sheriff's administration, and will also surround himself by brilliant people with the expertise and experience to really get the job done. So Paul was unable to join us today, but I really just want to shout out the candidate in Paul Guy that we have for our sheriff, Greenville County Sheriff. He will be on the ballot. Make sure that we're getting out and making and voting for the change that we want to see in our law enforcement here locally in Greenville. Tim, I can give you a minute because we haven't given anyone else surrogates, but I do want to hear your voice. You can have a minute to talk because we haven't given anyone else surrogates, and I do want to be fair to those that couldn't show up.
Can you hear me? Okay, a minute. I'll do it in 30 seconds. The thing about Paul is this, and this is the word I think that needs to be put out to our fellow Republicans. He is a candidate that both parties can support. He's competent. He's just plainly competent, and he does have a plan, and it includes an ethical framework. And I think that's very important. I think that's what's really missing in policing across the country. That's it.
Well, thank you, Tim. And Tim is someone that will be hopefully a part of Paul's administration when he gets elected. Tim has a great background, really ready to serve. Check out Paul Guy. He's doing great work with young folks and making sure that we're having a voice in the sheriff's race. He will be on the ballot, y'all. Make sure that we are checking that out and selecting Paul Guy for our sheriff. I'm going to move to another piece now to kind of quickly highlight some upcoming events, and then I want to kick it really quickly for a minute to those candidates and elected officials that have joined us. So upcoming events, we're doing some great voter registration across this great county. Big shout out to Ruth Todd, our first vice chair, who's just been amazing help to me, working tirelessly to get these off the ground. I know so many of you have taken it upon yourself to be a part of this. Thank you for that. I really want to highlight the Equal Justice Forum that Regina so eloquently talked about. We have an amazing, amazing panel. Ricardo, Frank, Teresa, and Chandra are all brilliant people who will add great insight to the constitutional crisis we find ourselves in right now. Lisa put a great event in earlier in the chat about Kim Nelson's event. It's going to be safe and socially distant. So we want to make sure Kim and her team are doing a great job of making sure that everyone knows that people are welcome, but they are going to practice what they preach. They're going to be making sure that it's safe, social distance, it is outside. Make sure you check out the Kim Nelson campaign at Kim Nelson for Congress. You also heard Dr. Bingham talking about her need for folks to lit drop. I know the Senate candidates, Michael talked about his need for volunteers. and Hal talked about his need for volunteers. What I'd like to do right now, I'm scanning. I see one, I see two, three, I believe. So I'm going to start with our amazing elected school board trustee, Ms. Glenda Morrison Fair. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Eli. And I want to really give a shout out to all of the candidates this morning who have given a plug for education. It is so true. Our state cannot be great without the least of these, and those are our children. Every day that I awake, I get up with the thought of how can I make the education system better for South Carolina. So I listened to the candidates this morning, and I really appreciate their enthusiasm. I am behind you 100%. My number is a public number. Please call on me and ask me to do whatever you need me to do. It is my desire that as long as I've been on the school board, that the formula that they use to fund the per pupil based costs has never been given to the school district. We really work at a deficit. Greenville County is a little bit better positioned than most counties in South Carolina, but we want every child in South Carolina to have an excellent opportunity for a great education. I won't take up much time. I am running this year in November. I ask for your support and your vote, but you can be assured that every day I am working for the children of South Carolina. Thank you so very much, Eli.
Thank you. Let's all make sure we send back Ms. Glenda to the school board. She is passionate. She is responsive. And that's what we need in our politicians, people that respond to the people. I am so excited to let my friend and our next county councilor from District 22, Samantha Wallace, share what's going on in her campaign and give a little insight on how you can help. I think I saw Sam. Maybe she is not here. Sam is not here. I'm going to kick it to our next county councilor, who is also my friend and is someone who ran because of a lack of responsiveness in county council, which is facts. Amanda McDougall-Scott in District 24.
Good morning, everybody. Eli, I'm sorry, Polk was in the background laughing. I don't remember how much time you said I had.
You have about a minute.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I just want to thank everybody for being here this morning and for all of the candidates who already spoke. I've worked with Ms. Glenda a lot when we worked together in Nicholtown, and I know how hard she works. And the fact that she is responsive and cares about children. And so obviously I'm very supportive of her. And I also have childcare as a part of my platform for county council, which is not something that county council has traditionally thought was their responsibility. But I think it is a basic piece of infrastructure. I don't think it, I know it. It is a basic piece of infrastructure. We have to have childcare. And if we keep bringing people into this county and all of our cities, and we don't provide basic infrastructure like childcare, our workforce is either unable to get to work or they're unsure of what is happening with their children. So I kind of got on a little sidebar there because Miss Glenda inspired me. But our campaign is working super hard. We really need everyone's help. I know we all need help. We all need volunteers. But this is an extremely winnable race. And for that, we need our Democrats to be working together. We need volunteers, whether you've got an hour or two to make phone calls or text, or if you don't have any time, but you have $5, or you have some friends who have $5, that will really help my campaign and help me win. And we can totally do this together. So.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. And I did want to quickly shout out our other county council candidate. Sam was on the call. She's running in District 22. We have Ferris Steele Johnson running in District 20. We have Will Morin running in District 27. And then we also have our current councilman, Ennis Fant, who is running in his district for re-election. We want to make sure that you all know where you can vote and how you can vote. So I will end with some great news that I want to share with everyone. We have worked hand in hand. A lot of the credit goes to our former chairwoman, Kate Franch, who just built great relationships. We have 4 satellite locations that will be open beginning October 12th from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We will be advertising this. It is on our website currently, but these locations are the Simpsonville Activity and Senior Action Center, the Mount Pleasant Community Center, which is located in the Annex building. In Travelers Rest, we have Renfrew Baptist Church, and in Greer, we have the Tryon Recreation Center. These are 4 locations that will be open again from October 12th through October 30th. They are satellite locations for voters across this great county. You're able to go in from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and you can, I repeat, you can take your absentee ballot, which you might have received by mail, and take it back to these satellite locations. In addition, y'all know that the county voter office, the registration and elections office, is another avenue on County Square at University Ridge. That will be open starting October 5th. Again, that will be opening October 5th, all the way through November 2nd. So the day before the election. These hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Again, I know this is so much information. We'll make sure that we are writing these down, but there are a couple of flags I just want to let y'all know. They've extended on 10/22, which is a Thursday, until 7 p.m. So you can go after work on Thursday. They're also giving us 2 great opportunities, which is October 24th and October 31st from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So some Saturday hours. This is a great win. A lot of you don't know this, but I do have a job, even though many people don't think I should. I have a full-time job and I work for voter protection. So we've been staying really busy. I want to give a big shout out to Susan Reardon, who's on this call, sitting on our voter protection statewide council. I want to give a huge shout out to Kate Franch, who put us in such a great place, to the amazing Jean Marie Tankersley, who has just run with our local voter protection unit, Mary Wright, who stepped up in tremendous ways to help us recruit people for the boiler room and sits on the Voter Protection Council. This is something we take serious, y'all. This is something we've been working really hard for, and we want to make sure that we are protecting the vote. And with protecting the vote, it's expanding access. So all of those great lawsuits that Jay was talking about, it's fun to be a part of that. I've seen it from the ground level. Full disclosure, Chandra is my boss and also a friend of mine. So come out to that constitutional panel. It's going to be amazing. I love being a Democrat now more than ever. Let's take these last 30 plus days and sprint to the finish. I want us to focus our energy on our opponents, which are the Republicans, not on each other, which are the Democrats. Let's just leave each other with that today. Again, much love, democratically yours. Eli, let's go out and get it. Everyone have a great day, and thank you so much for joining us for this breakfast.